But the key is, more than anything else, trying to get Dell to respond, isn't it?
Well, I think he wants Dell to put more on the table, bottom line here, and there's an opportunity to do so. I mean, there's three different things that can happen, right, between now and July 18th, or rather on July 18th, I should say. Investors have a choice. They could vote no on the deal, they could vote yes on the deal, or they could vote to exercise their appraisal rights, in which case they'd have a 60-day window where, you know, they could choose to do that or eventually just go with the 1365. Very, very interesting situation. What he's doing here is he's putting a little bit more pressure on Michael Dell and Silver Lake to sweeten their deal in some way, or at least make shareholders feel like they're not getting the best.
But Brian, the question to you is whether what Icahn is putting on the table today really means anything to anybody, because you have to believe that for the warrant to have value, Dell shares have a hope in hell of getting to $20.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, Eric, the last time Dell stock saw $20 was 5 years ago. At that point in time, our earnings estimate on Dell was roughly 50% higher than current levels. So it's about $1.50 versus the dollar that we have. So that basically implies that Dell stock is going to be valued at 20 times earnings. And this is hands down the most fundamentally challenged company we cover. Half of their business is PCs. We all know
but let me just ask you this. I mean, so why does Michael Dell want to buy this? Why does Silver Lake want to get involved? Why are banks financing this? I mean, if this is a decaying industry that has no shot, why go and do this? I
think it's fixable, Trish. If you look at it, you know, I think the beauty of the Dell business model is actually it's a very good distribution company. They've got great relationships with SMB, small to medium-sized businesses. They've got great relationships with public and federal institutions, you know, local governments, state governments, et cetera. So they can get out of the consumer business, which is going to be messy. I mean, it's going to cost the company a lot. So the volatility.
So it sounds like you're saying there is opportunity for a company like this, and Dell and Silver Lake see it. So the question is, are they getting too good a deal?
I don't think so. I think they're paying up. I mean, if the deal wasn't here today, I think Dell fair value would be high single digits.
Well, so not even $10 a share.
That'd be a stretch.
Well, Cristina, you've been working the phones on this and talking to your sources in the deal world. What do you hear about whether Michael Dell will actually raise his bid as a response to this?
You know, most smart shareholders are actually on Carl Icahn's side. They're saying that there is more value, and Michael Dell and Silver Lake could potentially put some more money on the table. They have the ability to do so. The problem for shareholders is really they don't feel very safe about turning down Michael Dell's deal, because the Carl Icahn proposal, warrant or no warrant, is still not a full takeout of the company. There's a publicly traded stub that's in question in terms of valuation, as you guys were just discussing. So for shareholders, they would have rather have seen an increase in the percentage that Icahn is taking out. Under the current proposal, he still is only taking out 70% of the shareholders, and the shareholders really wanted to see more on that front, or a higher offer when it came.
So what's interesting here is what this is offering basically is another deal that's on the table, right? So another reason for people to vote no, or to say I want to exercise my appraisal rights. If they exercise their appraisal rights, Eric, that means it goes to a Delaware court. One single judge has the ability to determine the valuation. If you're Michael Dell and you're Silver Lake, you don't really like that idea, right? Because it's going to be tied up for the next year or two, and who knows ultimately what this deal is going to cost you, because the judge could say, hey, we think it's worth $16 a share, or maybe they'll say 10, but you just don't know. So you get 60 days if you're Michael Dell and Silver Lake. Do you sweeten the deal just to make Carl go away?
Some people would say that's just a stalling tactic by Carl Icahn. The other option, as you presented, is that they could go with Icahn and vote against Michael Dell and Silver Lake's offer, but the board is trying to explain to shareholders why that's a bad idea, and this is what the board said yesterday. He, meaning Icahn, is asking them, meaning shareholders, if the merger does not occur, to cede full control of Dell's board to nominees of the Icahn Group, and then to hope for a highly leveraged recapitalization transaction that he himself admits may never come to fruition. Sure. Brian, you've considered these possibilities. You know, how shareholders clearly want more money, but if the route to getting more money is to put your full faith and trust in Carl Icahn, what's the likelihood that let's put it this way, what's the likelihood that he could find somebody, right, who's at least as capable as Michael Dell of running this company, and generating the kind of value that he says is not being offered to shareholders?
I think it's pretty difficult.
Why?
Think, because the employees of Dell want to work for Michael Dell, a tech visionary. You know, they don't want to work for Carl Icahn and a bunch of finance guys, frankly.
Okay, thanks.
I think if you look at it, you know, the investors are only going to get the opportunity to go into appraisal if they actually vote for the deal. I think the special
that's
committee,
a very good point. And
yeah.
that's something that they point out. In the special committee said that,
Yep.
and I'll quote, if a sufficiently large number of shareholders seek appraisal and thus do not vote in favor of the acquisition, the merger agreement will be terminated, the merger will not occur, stockholders will not have the opportunity to receive the $13.65 per share. It's what you're talking about. In other words, if everybody goes and votes for the appraisal, then you have no deal.
I don't think that Icahn thinks that he's going to get a favorable judgment out of the Delaware court, just given the history there. Remember, this is not the first time Carl Icahn and angry shareholders take their case to Delaware, and when they presented it the first time.
No, but this is a different case, Cristina.
Completely different case.
Your evaluation, appraisal, different, obviously.
Completely different case.
Maybe,
the first case had to do with.
They're a little
but
bit angry.
either way, Brian, you don't think this is the best option. You think they should just vote on the deal.
We do, yeah. In fact, ISS, you know, we thought they were going to go for the higher $14, but they analyzed the fundamentals and they realized as well,
The shareholder advisory group.
Definitely, yeah.
And you actually talked to Carl about that too.
Yeah, Carl, I don't know if we have the sound. He had a very interesting comment in response. I mentioned, of course, that they voted against this. Listen to what he had to say.
ISS, in all respect, and I do respect them, aren't analysts, and I don't think they claim to be, and so I'm surprised that they say there's a falling knife. I mean, they're just drinking the Kool-Aid that Dell tells them. I certainly don't think there's a falling knife. I think they're in an area, in the PC area, with this secular change going on. And Dell, I think, will be able to take advantage of that.
And hey, Brian, I mean, he's got a point, right? This guy's been doing this for many, many years, and he's had a lot more wins than losses. So, you know, what do you say in response to that?
I think obviously Carl has a phenomenal track record, and I think he's trying to extract a little bit more money out of the Silver Lake Dell party. I personally think he's going to be unlikely to get any more out. I think investors should take the 13.
And one thing Carl Icahn is not is an operator. When he says in his letter this morning to shareholders, we are also completely committed to bringing in management that we expect to be far superior to Michael Dell. We believe there would be several excellent candidates for this position. Has he given you any hint, Trish, as to who this might be? Because certainly the names don't appear in the letter at the very least.
He's got several candidates that he's looking at. He said it's too difficult to actually go public with some of those names right now.
It would give shareholders a lot more confidence if they knew who the CEO ultimately would be.
People wouldn't feel, I mean, because everything's in such turmoil, those people probably wouldn't be incredibly receptive at this point in time. Everything needs to close. Everything needs to happen before he wants to really entertain publicly all those names.
Cristina, let's give the final word to you, because that shareholder vote is happening on the 18th. You're going to that. This is setting up for a pretty dramatic moment here.
Absolutely, but at this point it is going to be tough for Icahn to pressure Michael Dell and Silver Lake to putting more money on the table. But what he is doing very successfully here is injecting some uncertainty over whether or not the Michael Dell Silver Lake deal can close in the time frame that they say it could close in. And that is a very crucial point here, because at the end of the day, shareholders want certainty. What Carl Icahn is doing is injecting a lot of uncertainty into this process.